You know, when you think about Ronald Reagan, he really played so many different parts in his life. He was a radio announcer, a movie star, a union boss, and of course, the President of the United States. His life felt like a series of distinct acts in a movie, with each one setting the stage for the next. It's a pretty remarkable story, so let's get into it.
I mean, it's a journey that sounds like it's straight out of Hollywood, right? How does a man who starred in over 50 films go from the silver screen to the Oval Office? That's the big question we're really going to try and unpack here.
So where do we start? Well, it all begins in Hollywood, of course. But his first taste of real power didn't come from being in front of the camera. It actually came from representing the very people he worked alongside.
Okay, now this part might really surprise you. Back in the 1940s, Reagan was a successful actor, sure, but politically, he called himself a hemophiliac liberal. He was a huge fan of Franklin D. Roosevelt and the New Deal. This is a world away from the conservative icon we remember.
So his first real dive into politics. It wasn't running for office. It was for union leadership. In 1947, he becomes the president of the Screen Actors Guild, right in the middle of the Red Scare and the infamous Hollywood blacklist. Talk about a baptism by fire. And this is where things get complicated. His time as the head of SAG is seen through two completely different lenses. On one hand, he's seen as a champion, a guy who fought for actors against unions he thought were being taken over by communists. But on the other hand, we now know he was also serving as an FBI informant, naming names of suspected communists. His critics say this made the Guild an accomplice to the Hollywood blacklist that just destroyed so many careers.
That whole experience, those union wars in Hollywood, it was a huge turning point. It really kicks off the next major role in his life, the political transformation that would define everything that came after. So, how did a liberal union boss become a conservative icon? Let's take a look.
You can pretty much chart his journey in these four distinct steps. He starts out as a staunch liberal Democrat. Then he becomes a fierce anti-communist as a union leader. From there, he becomes a corporate spokesman for General Electric, touring the country. And all of that leads to the final step, the conservative Republican icon we all know.
So you gotta wonder, what caused such a dramatic shift? Well, one of his old friends, the actor Melvin Douglas, he had a pretty interesting theory. He thought Reagan just started to believe his own lines, that the pro-business speeches he was paid to give for GE eventually just became what he genuinely believed.
And then came the moment it all became official. In 1964, by endorsing the hardcore conservative Barry Goldwater for president, Reagan drew a clear line in the sand. The liberal Democrat was gone for good. A new conservative voice had arrived on the scene.
And once he had this new identity, his rise in politics was, honestly, it was lightning fast. He went from being a private citizen to the most powerful person on the planet in less than 20 years. His first big test was running for governor of California in '66. The experts were skeptical, but Reagan didn't just win. He won by 1 million votes. 1 million. That wasn't just a victory, that was a political earthquake. It was a clear sign that his message was resonating with a huge number of people. And that appeal went national in 1980 in a huge way. This number really says it all. He won 489 electoral votes. The incumbent president, Jimmy Carter, got 49. It was an absolute landslide, one of the most lopsided elections in modern history. It was America basically saying, we're ready for a big change. You know, his presidency started with an incredibly dramatic life or death moment. Just 69 days in, he was shot. But the way he handled it, with such grace and even humor through the whole thing, that became a defining moment. It made his popularity just skyrocket and really forged this powerful bond with the American people.
So once he recovered, he didn't waste any time. He launched this huge, ambitious program to totally reshape America, both at home and around the world. It became known as the Reagan Revolution, and it was all guided by one core idea: peace through strength.
So what was this Reagan Revolution everybody talks about? Well, at its heart, it was about boosting the American spirit by getting government out of the way. The main plan was to cut taxes to get the economy going, and to deregulate industries to free up businesses. And at the exact same time, he pushed for a massive increase in defense spending to challenge the Soviet Union head-on. And this chart really shows you he wasn't kidding about that defense spending. Over his 2 terms, it went up by 35%. This wasn't just a small budget tweak, it was a core part of his entire foreign policy strategy.
The idea was to confront and basically outspend the Soviets into submission.
All of this strategy, all of this spending, it all led to one of the most iconic moments of the entire 20th century. In 1987, standing right there at the Brandenburg Gate, he threw down this direct challenge to the leader of the Soviet Union. It's a line that, as one source put it, literally made an impact on the course of human history.
Okay, so we've seen all these different roles: the actor, the union boss, the governor, the president. How do we put it all together? What's his legacy? Well, just like his life, it's really complicated, and people still argue about it today. He earned nicknames from the great communicator all the way to the Teflon president.
All right, let's start with the official view, the one you'll hear from his supporters and his foundation. For them, the achievements were clear-cut. They believe he brought back America's confidence, oversaw a historic economic boom, and basically won the Cold War with his peace through strength policy.
But of course, that's not the whole story. As this table shows, for every one of those big achievements, there's a counterpoint. That economic boom? It came with huge government deficits, thanks in part to all that defense spending. Peace through strength? Critics saw it as a dangerous period of escalation. And that renewed confidence? For many, it felt like it came at the cost of divisive and controversial policies.
After this long, incredible, and controversial life, Ronald Reagan's story came to a quiet close on June 5, 2004. He passed away at 93 after a very public battle with Alzheimer's disease.
So that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. From a Hollywood soundstage to the world stage, he played so many roles. But which one was the real one? The actor who always knew his audience? The leader who completely reshaped his party? Or the president who reshaped the world? Well, that's a question history is definitely still debating.